Okay, yesterday we started learning various dinim of doctors and stuff. So one thing I definitely want to say, I should have said this at the beginning of every class, that is nobody can even think of paskening shilas based on what we discuss here in the class. Because we're discussing. Every case is different, every case, we're discussing general concepts, but nobody could take these dinim in anything that we're learning and apply them in practical halacha. Okay, so now we learned that you should daven that a person shouldn't get sick, because once they get sick, it's more difficult for them to find a schus and so on. Okay, also we learned that if you have a sick person, you go to a chacham, the chacham should daven for you, that's what the Gemara says. Now it's also customary to give tzedakah for somebody who's sick. That's why in the Mishabech they always say, Bavor sheyitain, we had always beli neder, tzedakah ba'avodim, because if you make a person promises to give tzedakah, they have to give it. So ideally you're supposed to say bli neder, but the Gemara says tzedakah tatzil mimavis, tzedakah saves the person from death. Tzedakah is a very good thing. Also, there's a minig. The halacha says that you make a mishaberach for a person in shul, and again, like we learned yesterday, you use the mother's name. Now sometimes, if a person, God forbid, is very sick, they'll do what's called Shinui Hashem. Now Shinui Hashem doesn't mean changing the name. B'chlal, this whole idea of certain hocus pocus people, leave that at that. You come to them with a problem, okay, change your name. It's very un-Jewish, un-halacha, un-kabbalistic to do. Because the name which a person is given was a prophecy given to the parents at the time of birth, what the name of the child should be. So you just don't go changing names. Sometimes, in certain cases, you add a name. If somebody's very sick, you add a name. And even that, it says in halacha, it has to be done through a chacham who knows what he's doing and what name you pick. And also, there's a lot of, I'll give you an example. It says clearly in Shulchan Aruch that when you add a name, the name you add goes first. So it didn't have an ezet. That when you add a name, the name that you add goes first. A lot of people adding names, and they put the additional name second, which is mamish against Shulchan Aruch. I once asked somebody, he said, no, it doesn't matter, you can do it either way. Never in Ezra, there's a clear din, Shulchan Aruch brings down, that when you add a name to somebody, for whatever reason it is, the name you add goes first. So let's say somebody is Moshe, and they God forbid sick, so you try to add a name that means life. So you add Chaim, Raphael, something like that, that should mean, life or healing and so on. But then his name doesn't become Moshe Chaim, it becomes Chaim Moshe, or Raphael Moshe, not Moshe Raphael. So all those things could be done. A lot of people like to do it by the Torah, some people do it with a minyan, with the whole thing of saying Tillim. But then there's another interesting question. What happens if a person was added a name, but they didn't get better? So now they passed away. So let's say his name was Moshe, now they called him Chaim Moshe, and he didn't get better, he died. So according to halacha, the name doesn't stay. The name doesn't stay. In order for a name to, again, you can always add whatever you want, but I'm saying halachically that name doesn't stay unless if the person became healthy and was healthy for 30 days, mamish healthy, then even if they get sick later, then that name that they added then would stay. But otherwise, if a person, you had a name and then somebody passes away, the name doesn't stick. That's what it says in halacha. It only is if the person became healthy. He says they bring down the Adam Kaddish, you need a holy person to add these names and so on. Okay, but even then, but no, you don't change names. Now there's a lot of other times, by the way, in halacha that you add names, not only if you're sick. So we learned already in a different time, there's Tzavos Rabbi Yehuda Chassid, that a son-in-law and a father-in-law should not have the same name, or a mother-in-law and a daughter-in-law should not have the same name. And in fact, Rabbi Yehuda Chassid brings down, two mechutanim shouldn't have the same names, unless, let's say, one's a Kohen, one's not, one's a Levi, one's a Kohen, one's a, Yisrael, Or even when the names with the same names, the Rebbe answered people countless times, it's already printed all over the place, that it's only if they have the same identical name. Let's say if a woman has Sarah and the other person has Sarah Rivka. So if it's not exactly the same name, it doesn't matter. You can have a mother-in-law, daughter-in-law, son-in-law, father-in-law. That doesn't matter. Again, it's all Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid. Now all those things Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid is a big argument in halacha. Does it apply to, did he write it only for his children and nobody else? Or does it apply to everybody else also? And there's our whole discussion in halacha. Some things is universally accepted that you do. From Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid, some things not necessarily you do. But whatever, but I'm saying...
It's a mother-in-law and daughter-in-law has the same.
Have the same name. So
who changes?
One of them has to change the name.
Either one, it doesn't.
Either one could change the name. In fact, from the Rebbe's letters that comes out, they should change the name before they even start going out, and the condition that it works out. That's what the Rebbe writes. They should change it. One second. But I'll give you an example. Now, normally, if you think about it, who should change the name? The younger girl, right? Or the younger boy should change the name. But I had a relative that called me. His name is, believe it or not, his name is Menachem Mendel. And his daughter was going out with somebody, they spoke a shidduch, with a boy whose name is also Menachem Mendel. Very uncommon name in Chabad. So, or Chaya Mushk, or, all those names. So he calls me up, I told him one of them have to change the name. He said, but if you think about it, he has a bunch of girls, yeah? So he says, the probability that I'll get another Menachem Mendel is very, very probable. So if that's the case, won't it make sense for me to change the name? For me to change the name, because again, I'm not going to get too many Menachem Mendels with my name in it added. You know what I mean? So he said, yeah, that's what he did. He added a name, not changed. You add a name. You don't change names. You add a name. And again, the name you add goes first. But it's interesting. This guy, this relative of mine, his mother also, one of his kids married a girl with the same name as them. Also a very common Chabad name for girls. But the mother-in-law changed the name, probably for the same reason. Because if there's other kids, it's very probable they might get another Chabad kid name, and then so everybody's going to change the name, so they change the name. That's basic. Anytime you add a name, Shulchan Aruch and Even Ezra says, besides that, forget Shulchan Aruch. The Rebbe brings down in a letter. The Rebbe quotes this, it's printed in Likutei Sichos. The Rebbe brings down the din in Even Ezra, and he says, when he's talking to somebody about adding a name, he says, okay, you do what it says in halacha, in Shulchan Aruch, that the name you add goes first. Huh? What do you mean legally?
Should you add a legal name also, or just their regular?
No, but now you have one second. Now you have an interesting shaila though. What happens if somebody added a name? Okay? Give you a few examples. They got married. So the Ksuba, let's say his name was Avram. Okay, Avram ben Yaakov, whatever, yeah? Now he got sick, whatever, and he added a name. Or they got... I didn't. I'm sorry.
Very healthy.
I didn't say anybody got sick. And whatever, they add a name. Or like the kid's daughter, the son, somebody has to add a name. So now the question is, do you have to change the ksuba or not? The ksuba, because the ksuba has your old name. Now you added a new name. So now the shaila is, do you have to add a name or not? So it's a machlekes between Mechas Yitzchak and Rav Moshe. If you do or not, some do, some don't. Either way, it's fine. Some will change the ksuba, and some... Huh?
Wasn't his name then?
Right, so that's the word.
They changed the thing to Oliver Shalom. That's what it was then.
Correct. That's what the Mechas Yitzchak, I believe, is one that says, Mechas Yitzchak, says that you don't have to write a new ksuba because it's the time of the ksuba, the date on the ksuba, that was his name.
Well, if that's the case, then let's say you're giving somebody a mishaberach whose mother changed their name.
Yeah.
Do you use the new name?
Both names.
You use both names.
Yeah.
The same with the father. You get an aliyah, you use the father's new name.
Correct.
And if the Aiden,
I want you to know there are some people in the Shtangada by COVID, and one person comes to mind, Lubavitch, a guy in New York, who's taka very, very sick. Mama's on his deathbed, and he pulled out of it, and his mama's healthy, and he added the name Chaim to his name, and that's how he goes now. Whatever, I don't want to say names, but he has two other names, and that's what he goes, Chaim, blank, blank, blank. That's what he goes by now, because that's his legal name.
It's on COL.
Huh? He's on COL? That what? Okay, what is that?
Doesn't it make more sense?
What?
It doesn't make more sense that the name that has always been going by should be first, and then the name should be added to the.
If that's the case, then why change the name?
So halacha says,
Why does halacha say?
because the name is added, you add at the beginning, you don't add at the end.
How did this guy add it, the one that the Rebbe told him to change his last name?
No, there was two people. First of all, okay. Number one, there was one person, I don't want to say names. One person was a ger, but a super chassidish mashpia in Eretz Yisrael. He was a convert from Australia, in fact. And when he became a ger, he took a name, like, people do. He went to Rebbe for Yechidus, and the Rebbe changed his name. The Rebbe told him, you should call yourself this and this, which he did. So, but that's a unique situation. With Din Steinsaltz, the Rebbe told him that he should change his last name because Stein, which is stone, and Salz, which is salt, both imply Gvura. So the Rebbe told, even though normally last names have nothing to do with anything, halachically. So the Rebbe told me he should change his name. So it didn't go right away, but then he became Evan Yisrael. Instead of Stein Salz, Stein is Evan, and changing to Evan. What? He's still known as Stein Salz because that's for many years. What?
But having the name, they formally changed in the birth certificate as well, or just call them it?
When you add a name for what? Somebody who's sick or something? No, you don't change the legal papers. At birth, that's what he was called. Nobody said, then you added a name. So then you add a name based on that. What?
if the Aiden change the name on the Ksuba, according to that opinion that says you have to change the Aiden as well, would you have to do this?
You have to write a nuksuba.
Okay. And then secondly, if you're not changing the name, but you're adding to the same name, could you do that? Like Avi to Aviel?
That's not a different name. It's technically a different name. But if it depends, like the name Avi is a nickname. So the question is, it's Avi for Avram, is it Aviel, is it for Avishai, is it for, you can have a lot of names that Avi could be a nickname for. So Avi itself, there is a name Avi, but it's normally used as a nickname, so you have to know what name it is.
I'm saying better name that's something short that you can add.
You try to make it a whole new name.